Hello, I'm Andrew Gibbons. I always say that because it feels it's necessary. I'm going to hand straight over to Jacky, who's going to position the second in a two-part series on the reds and blues exercise.
Okay, so the first session, we introduced you to the reds and blues negotiation communication skills type activity, which can be used in a variety of different settings. I often use it in leadership sessions, and Andrew's used it far more often than I have, so has far greater experience. I know I'm bigging him up here, far greater experience in delivering this than I. So today, really what we wanted to go through was how do people respond and react to it? So what are the lessons we've learned in terms of the sessions, and also some of the responses that you get. And I think the reason why this is important to this activity is actually some of the responses are quite extreme sometimes.
And unexpected.
Yeah. So over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Jacky. And, I know what you'll do. You'll pitch in and as you feel appropriate. So, yeah, I primarily use the reds and blues exercise, which we've explained before, and which, if you want the paperwork, it's very simple. It's a task sheet and a scoring sheet. Get back to me and I'll give it to anybody by email. So I use the reds and blues exercise particularly for negotiation, conflict management. As you say, Jacky, it's got wider range of stuff. With a bit of imagination, you can use it in a variety of different ways. I'll just explain one. So having gone through the process of the use of it, typically taking 3/4 of an hour, it can take an hour or so. It's never two. Debrief it. I debrief it in the form of, well, what did you learn from it? What issues came out of it? And then I also give people the quotes exercise. Well, look what other people have said in the past, because that triggers other issues, reinforces the issue primarily of collaboration is the way to score higher scores, but it's boring and people are drawn to conflict. They seem to like conflict more. It's more exciting. So therefore the scores drop lower. So I tend to do that. And sometimes because I've got so many of them, I also give out quite a number of, here's some past ones. What do you make of this? So that all helps in the debrief. Then I offer, Jacky, very often I say, okay, do you think you've learned something from this? Oh yeah, we've learned that. It's like, okay, do you want to prove it? Oh, how do you mean? Well, how do you think we can prove it? And sometimes you get people catch on. Sometimes I need to say, let's do it again. So sometimes I offer the option of doing it a second time. You know why I offer that. Why do you think it is? Well, I know you know.
Well, what I know is the result often is, no, we don't go there, which is really surprising because it's an opportunity, isn't it, to test your learning at that point. But it's surprising how many people will resist that opportunity to do that.
And that's what I say to them, because you're absolutely right. I guess I get people not wanting to do it a second time, which, by the way, as I say, will take about 6 or so minutes, because you know how it goes by now. If you say you've learned something, it'll be straightforward. You go reds all the way through. That's what you do. That could take 3 minutes, but I still go through the palaver of toing and froing, letting people know. So I ask myself the question, and I say to them, so why are we resistant? And sometimes I say, well, there's no point, is there? Because we've learned lessons. I would like to test it. I'm not going to force it on you, but I'm interested that you seem to be resistant to it. I very often talk in those sorts of terms. My own feeling is, and I got a feeling you feel the same way, tell me if it's differently, is people don't want to be proved that they haven't learned it. And sometimes when they have done it a second time, they have not resisted the urge to somehow get drawn into competition and bring those scores down. It should be 36, 36. I think that's what it is. Or is it 48, 48? I can't do the maths. It should be equal high numbers, no low numbers.
It is, I suppose, is this belief, I guess, that there can only be one winner. And therefore, even though the outcome is very clear from the activity, that what we're trying to create here, the objective is to score as high as possible, not to beat anybody.
Absolutely.
That doesn't stick, does it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
This desire to win, this desire first, to be best.
Yeah. Or at least worst.
It seems, doesn't it, to be connected with not crossing the line first rather than getting the highest score that you possibly can. Because that's the point, isn't it? The highest score you possibly can.
Absolutely, which is typically in cooperation and collaboration with the others. They know this, they know it, they understand it. And as you say, knowing it, understanding the logic of it, sometimes is not enough. Other times, yes, it is. I'll just throw some more examples of the sorts of issues that come out. Right, a word of caution. I once did this in a local authority in the West Midlands. I used to say I won't mention any names and then go on and do so, but I won't. And this was in a real intact team. There's a bit of danger and a bit of edge and a bit of reality when you're working with real teams rather than people who come from others, because it is real. It is their dynamics. It's about them, and it's how they really are. They are the real team. So I was working with this team of people. They're all ladies. So it's from a branch of a particular function of a local authority that women dominated in management roles, which is unusual, but that's how it is. And in this particular case, the manager, the ultimate manager of these people was in a team, and a group of her fellow managers were in that team with her, and the other team consisted of other managers, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, they got to the point where it was the very last round. And in the very last round, this can happen more often than you might think. They'd agreed in the negotiation at round 8 to go red, red, points count double, hallelujah, everyone's going to get lots of points. As sometimes happens, this group in their deliberations, the non-Pat, because that was the manager's name, said, let's do it. Let's do it. I know we said we wouldn't, but let's do it. Let's go blue. They'll go red. We'll win. So I always announce the very last one when they're all together, because it's got a bit more impact. Otherwise, they all come in muttering and moaning if they've done a dirty. So I said, and the score for the result for round 10 is blue-red. And Pat's group, and Pat in particular, go, what? That's not what we agreed. And then Pat went a bit bonkers. Right, she said, I expected this of you, and you. Well, I'm disappointed in you. And as for you, we'll have words about this. I thought, hold on a minute, missus. And therefore, as a facilitator of this exercise, I think we must be acutely aware of our responsibility that we could be opening things up, unknown and perhaps unpredictably, but we have a responsibility to do what can be done to repair damage live and to say, hang on a minute, let's sort this out. I don't want you going back to work and causing problems.
I used this term earlier on today. Knowing and doing sometimes make strange bedfellows, don't they? They're not the same thing.
No. Sure.
And they don't often, they sometimes don't sit comfortably side by side.
Very true. And so, we're sometimes unaware of the dynamics, the history, the politics, the personal issues, particularly when we're working with intact teams. And I think that's a common thing to reflect upon when we're facilitating anything. But this exercise can bring that out. An apparently innocuous exercise like this, only involving reds or blues and scores, can still get people excited. I'll throw a couple of other bits of learning in. Twice only have I had people actually write a contract at a point of negotiation where they've actually felt the need explicitly and in writing on the sheet of paper. It has been agreed that we will do this, that they're signed. So only twice, but kind of, why not more often? But that shows a distrust.
And that, I assume then, they felt more comfortable that the outcome would be achieved, because
more binding, more likely to be binding.
Wow, that's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because as we know, that isn't necessarily so.
Could be.
But yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, yeah.
Well, and again, one of those instances was when I was working with HR managers from a particular region of the country. What they had in common is they all came from different organizations within a broad, again, it's a local authority context. They all came from different local authorities, but they were within the Southwest, in this case, region. I'll say no more than that. And so they knew each other. You would think they'd have a body of trust and a good positive relationship. Maybe they knew each other well enough to know that they would do the dirty on them. I don't know.
That's like the culture of agreeing something in person, isn't it, with someone, and then following up and writing in an email to come.
Or maybe it's just the way they're used to doing things in a formalized contractual. I don't know. So sometimes we just don't know why people react. Here's another one. I've got many times the point where teams, due to the combination of colours, are both heading for a negative score. And I say to them, neither of you achieving the objective of the exercise. You've got to be careful with your interjections, but sometimes it doesn't hurt. You make that judgment as to whether it's right to keep reminding them of the because sometimes they go, hey, look, we're winning. We're -6, they're -23 or 4. And I think, no, neither of you are achieving the objective of the exercise. And on this occasion, that was happening. And then I had just once this happen, where a group said, what if we made points worth 10 times what you've got them down as? Because then if we did a red, and that scored double, we'd all end up with 10 times the thing. Would that be all right? And I said, I always reward creativity. I like that. And I'll give another example of it. I think after round 2, only one group ever, I've done this hundreds of times, said, can we have a negotiation now? And someone in the group said, oh, the rules say this, we can't do that. I said, oh, yes, you can. If you want to change the rules, change the rules. Because one of the things in negotiation I like to bring out in this exercise, because it has got a lot of issues in there, is sometimes we feel too bound by the rules. Some rules have got to be kept to, of course they have. But sometimes the rules we think are rigid are not, and we can go for a better outcome by seeking a change to the apparent rules and parameters we work within.
I think that's that process outcome thing, isn't it? Sometimes people get so fixated on the process that they actually forget about the outcome, and the outcome is where we're going. The outcome is the important thing, more than the process.
On top of which, Jackie, I think particularly when I'm working with negotiation, the point I can bring out is sometimes when we're in a genuine negotiation, it's when we need to look for creative, innovative solutions. And yet there's so much going on, we don't feel we got the space to do so. So I said, that's a really positive thing to do, to say, hey, I can look for a different way and a better way to do this, which result in a better outcome. So as a facilitator, if you're alive to these sorts of issues, if you're looking to relate them to the issue, which might in this case be conflict management or negotiation, the reality of using it can bring out a lot of really powerful learning.
Yeah, cool. So how about we just sort of top off this session with having a look at some of the quotes that you've collected during
Sure. They're familiar to me, but they might have had a bit more impact to you as you've had less of a sight of them.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I have chuckled at a few of them.
I was going to say choke.
No, chuckled, but let me just see if I can.
Yeah, bring them up. They are good.
Oh,
and as I say, as part of the debrief, I show them this so they can relate to it. Go on, then lead me through them.
There we go. So we've got here a good selection of quotes, and as I say, you are familiar. You've collected them.
I'm drawn to bloody told you.
Yeah. Yes. And this, we can't win now that they've cheated on us. It's almost like well.
The objective of this is to win. No, it's not.
And where does it? And again, you sort of think, well, where does this come from? But I suppose society is rooted in win and lose, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And again, the temptation from a facilitator's point of view is to come in and say, hang on a minute, the objective is not to win. The objective is, you've got to be careful because you can keep reinforcing the purpose of the exercise, but I don't think you should say, hang on a minute, you got that wrong. You should be working together. No, you work how you choose, but the objective remains this always.
Yeah, there we go. And never a true word spoken there. I just want to win regardless of the outcome.
We've so pissed them off. That's a sort of, I mean, sometimes one person gets into a negotiation, and I encourage it always negotiation on rounds 4 and 8, or any other rounds if they're creative enough to come up with it. It's brilliant. Scroll down 1 or 2 more because there could be others that you really pick out.
Oh, and this is the one. Like, now we know they play dirty. It's our turn. It's on. Vengeance is ours.
I know. Again, you've got to be aware. Sometimes these are colleagues. I don't overrate this because they're not going to let each other's car tires down or burn each other's houses. But these are colleagues that go back. Sometimes a little bit of grudge, a little bit of feeling remains. You've got to be acutely aware of this.
Yeah. I don't see the point of negotiating. We're winning.
Which is so blind because it's a downward spiral. But it's things to bring out, you see. It's things to bring out. Give us another page or 2 because there's some good stuff on the later ones too.
Let's have a little look here.
I can't get past you twisting shits.
But it's this, and when you can see how these sort of either misunderstandings of the outcome or understandings of the rules of engagement, if you like, can create this vindictiveness and negativity within a team. So I prefer both both to lose rather than us to lose and not them.
I know. Sodom, if they can cheat, so can we. It's all there. Behavior breeds behavior, all the fundamental principles of behavior. Again, the power of this exercise is its reality. People behaving in a way which is how they really are. I've had people say, well, I'm not like when I go back to work. That's not the real me. And I think, I reckon it is.
I'm gonna close off after this one, but this. If you listen to me from the start, we'd be kicking their ass. For that.
So yes, it's funny. It's funny. It's interesting, but it's also got edge.
Yeah, and it's, as you said, it is a true reflection of how those people behave in given similar circumstances.
I think so. It's a really, really powerful exercise. It's not difficult to understand in order to facilitate. It might be good to do a bit of a dry run in a safe environment first. But frankly, it's not so complex as to be a turn off. If you understand it, and you think you do, get out there and use it. Come back to me, come back to you, either of us. We'll help you further if you want more on this. We'll have a chat through. Certainly, I can speak for myself. I'm prepared to have a chat through with a call with you, or we can send on the paperwork again. It's all the paperwork's on the previous video of this. This is a two-part series. We better close down because we can go on forever. We know this, and we're out of time.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.